mentioned, talking a little bit about the economy, so, and, your work in Congress, so, would you like to see more done, both sides of the aisle coming together to kind of find a solution? It's been kind of a struggle getting one final solution.
Well, there's actually two questions in there. One is COVID relief, which needs to deal with COVID. And that's been one of the problems is that Nancy Pelosi has used the COVID relief package, knowing that we need to do another package, to try to push forward some of the other Democrat goals and ideals. The one that I always like to pick on because it doesn't make any sense at all is they want to get rid of the prohibition or the limitations on what's called the SALT tax. Now that's the state and local tax deduction on the federal taxes. We already allow that up to such a high level that very few people in the Roanoke Valley would ever have to pay. The people who are paying those state and local taxes are in New York City, San Francisco, the places that are much wealthier than our area, and yet they want to take it out of our federal tax dollars, so they basically have people from Saltville paying the taxes for the people in San Francisco. Well, that's just not right, but no, Nancy Pelosi's got that, she has that in her version of COVID relief. Well, of course I'm never voting for that. Now, do we need to do some more? Do we need to do something to help people who are unemployed? I think we do. Do we need to make sure that we're stimulating the economy by putting in some money for American families to have? I can agree to that. Do we need to make sure that we allow small businesses an additional draw on PPP? I've sponsored a bill that does that. That's the money that goes to small businesses to help pay their employees. Yeah, I think we need to do some of that. Let's focus on COVID, and let's not make it about your pet political project like paying taxes in San Francisco, and let's just focus on what we need to do for COVID. So that's question one. Question two is, what can we do to help the economy? And one of the things that the Trump administration had done was, one, we had changed the tax code to make it stimulate the economy, and two, rolling back some regulations, making them make sense, making them reasonable so that businesses could invest in the United States, whether they were world businesses or whether it was just a mom and pop that wanted to get started. Because if you build up such a high regulatory wall that somebody can't start a business, then those jobs are never created. And we know that when you look at history in the United States, most of our jobs start out by small businesses that get a little bit bigger. And some of them start off in somebody's garage and end up being Apple. But a lot of them end up hiring 10, 12, 15 people. Those are small businesses. But for those people that have those jobs, that's a big deal. And when you take thousands of those kinds of people and those types of jobs, that makes your economy strong. And so we need a regulatory system that makes sense, but also encourages people to create new jobs. And that's what we did in the first 3 years before COVID, and we need to make sure we continue to do that for the next 4 years.
Yeah. So what are some of your main issues that you kind of want to focus on?
Well, we have to continue to work on drug abuse, particularly the opioid problem. We think we've crested, but then COVID has brought about some new incidences, so we have to keep an eye on that. We also have other drug issues in the district we have to keep an eye on. We've got to continue to try to work hard to build a new economy in Southwest and Southside Virginia. And so there's a lot of things that we're doing on that. We had a little press release yesterday, or a press gathering yesterday, on Operation Oasis that's working on some things related to using the water in the mines. Also, I have a program that I've championed called the Abandoned Mineland Pilot Project. That's very important because what we're doing is we're taking old mines and repurposing them, and as long as we do something to make it a little bit safer, we can access money. And so far that we're at $30 million already. We expect it's in all the budgets. We just haven't passed a full year budget yet, but it's in all the drafts for another $10 million that'll come into the region to help repurpose it. And we've done everything from tourism to creating industrial sites for people to come in. Some of them are really interesting too, but it's everything from doing a parking lot at the Devil's Bathtub, which we're still working on, but the money's been allocated for that, to taking an old coal processing plant. That's where they would grade the coal and do it by size and then ship it out of there. They're converting that into it'll end up being a 200-acre industrial site with rail, electric, gas, and water already there. Nobody has to pay for it, nobody has to upgrade it, it's all there. All you have to do is get rid of the old buildings and take care of a coal fine. That means the little fine particles that they couldn't sell to anybody. They dumped them in a lagoon structure, and we have to clean all that up before somebody else can use it. And this money's going to do that. So, you know, and then Russell County ends up with a site where we may get, we hope to get an industrial site located in there and get, you know, some jobs for people. So it's about working on the economy. To take the short version, it's making sure that we're continuing to increase the ability to create jobs and build a new economy in the region, and that's important. Then I got all kinds of little things I'm working on, but I would say that those are probably two of the biggies.
So this year there has been kind of a lot of talk about, you know, police reform and kind of, you know, the right or wrong way to do things. So do you mind maybe sharing your perspective or your point of view on that
Sure.
a little bit?
Well, I don't think there's any question that we can always take a look at how to improve things. And I, for one, I have some concerns about chokeholds. I think unless your life is being threatened, we probably ought to bar law enforcement from using chokeholds. Now, if your life's in danger, you do what you got to do. But you know, there are lots of cases where you don't need to do that. And I also think that we need to re-examine no-knock warrants to, again, make that you know, available only when we think there's a life in danger, because there are too many cases that have happened over the years where they get the wrong house, or there's some confusion, and there's a problem. And if all we're trying to do is to prevent the destruction of evidence, in all fairness, if you have a big-time drug dealer who's got drugs in the house, they can't flush it all down fast enough. The no-knock may cost you some evidence, but it's not going to cost you, by not having that tool available, it's not going to cost you all evidence, it's just going to cost you some of the evidence in most cases. And yet you're putting, when you do that, you're always putting some risk involved, because there's a chance that the people don't know what's going on, and then they decide they're inside their homes, they decide to defend themselves. And I can remember one case from years ago where they had the wrong house, and the people were completely innocent, but they thought they were defending their home against home invaders. And you know, those are bad situations. So there are other ways that we can do things. Now, that being said, there have been proposals by many on the other side of the aisle, the Democrats, to defund the police, and I think that's just crazy. I hate to say that, but that's just I mean, what are they thinking? And you know, you want to talk about some reforms, let's sit down, let's have a discussion, let's figure out what we can do, let's make the system better, absolutely. But defund the police? No, these are our neighbors and our friends in most cases. We need the ability maybe to get rid of a bad police officer a little faster and a little easier, but we don't have to be defunding the police. That's wrong.